right, here we go. Looks like we're ready. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Extraordinary Technology Conference 2014. This is the Electrogravidics portion of our conference, and today we have a special guest. He's lectured here before, along with John Searl, and he's presented some amazing technologies, and we've all had a great time with his presentations. Russell Anderson is promoting the work of John Searl's antigravity, SEG, and free energy technology. He's been doing a lot of research in this field over the years. So without further ado, please welcome Russell Anderson.
Hey everybody, how you doing? I see some familiar faces out there. Many people I've known for years. Thorsten, I remember you. First met you in 1990 at the Tesla Symposium in Colorado Springs. Moray, I met you in '94 at the Thomas Townsend Brown Conference in Philadelphia. And many other familiar faces. It's great to be back. And, you know, I've got a lot of really great things to talk about. It is a new day. I don't know if anybody else, so I'm sure you guys have seen that the paradigm has shifted. You can't turn on the TV, on cable TV these days, and not see a program attesting to the reality of the UFO phenomenon and even advanced technology from Earth that is just as effective. But without further ado, what I want to do is something a little special, something literally uplifting. I want to call on stage all the people that are here that are members of STI, Team Searl, and people that have worked in the field or been relatives of people in the field. I'd like to call up Mr. Chuck Middaugh, Mr. Bradley Lockerman, and Linda Brown, the daughter of Thomas Townsend Brown. Linda, are you here? Here's Linda. Yeah, I started replicating Thomas Townsend Brown's work back in, I guess, late 1980s, and I was surprised that it's so effective. Why is it not being taught in our schools? This is crazy. So I have been correcting that oversight since the year 2002 in schools all over. So what I want to do, we'll join hands, lock hands, and raise them in the air. Power to the people! We are here, and as determined individuals, we will be successful. We are successful, and all of you are successful by showing up. Thank you. Thank you, people. I remember something really significant that really changed my life when I was a little kid in 1965. I just had finished watching the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite, and all of a sudden I saw a star background coming out of the TV, and I heard these words: "This is the beginning. This is the day. You are watching mankind's colonization of space beyond the stars." And then I saw this saucer-shaped spacecraft, Starship, on a launch platform.
I'm going to try something real quick here. Try that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much, John. Saw a Starship, double-decker Starship, on a launch platform. All of a sudden, the generator at the bottom started to rotate, the light started to rotate, and the thing assumed a corona discharge and a powerful whine, and up it went. And I'm like, oh my God. This is what people are seeing, this is what people are experiencing, this kind of, you know, wonder. I think it permanently fried my brain and set me on a path which is coming to fruition as we speak. But anyway, without further ado, we'll get to the PowerPoint. Now, I'm going to talk about Searl antigravity's legendary antigravity, electromagnetic propulsion, or electrogravitic propulsion, we could also call it. Professor John R. Searl's all-electric spacecraft and more. That's me. Says chief engineer, but in this work there is no room for a chief. There is no room for a boss. Only room for a team. This can only be done by a team effort with experts in technology, business, science. And we have PhDs working with us, we have business experts working with us, we have mathematics experts working with us all over the world. So as determined individuals working as a team, we are meeting with success. We are prototyping. It's very exciting. CEO of Applied Electrogravidics, that's Townsend Brown's technology that I've been selling, helping kids win science fairs with the last 12 years or so. And also I am Chief Inverse Gravity Vehicle Engineer at swallowcommand.com. Anyway, here we go. Will you believe John Searl? I certainly do. I worked with him for the last 7 years. That's the DVD from BKL Films, Bradley Lockerman Films, Los Angeles, California, the John Searl story. And you see John Searl at the bottom right, and he's standing behind, in front of, and behind and above is one of his famous Levity disks. And we call them today inverse gravity vehicles, because in the Levity disk, or the inverse gravity vehicle, we are absolutely certain that gravity acts like a repelling force instead of an attractive force. So that's the main difference with this type of propulsion. It's not aerodynamic. You don't depend on aerodynamics or internal combustion for lift and propulsion. This is all electrodynamic, electromagnetic, or electrogravitic propulsion. And what I've seen from everywhere is that gravitation, despite what you see in the textbooks, doesn't seem to be some kind of implacable space warp brought about by mass or energy. Seems to be an electrostatic effect. And Nieper showed how it could even penetrate Faraday cages in his experiments back in the day. Now, many of you who were here 4 years ago when I was lecturing with Professor Searl remember that device. That's a 1:1 scale model of his inverse gravity vehicle, or Levity disk. Whoops, let me go back to that. I spent over 20 years, more like 30 years, almost studying and teaching advanced propulsion around the world. Now, right in here, this would be your pressure vessel or cabin where pilots and instruments would go. This is the inner shell, upper and lower, electrically isolated. They're normally connected to the innermost side of the generator, which is positive. So electrons are attracted to that like nobody's business. This track here is the SEG, or we call it STG, Spintronic generator housing. We're calling it now the Spintronic generator. It's more descriptive of its function. Right here would be the flight cell area. There's a couple of open flight cells. The generator is controlled from the outside. And here's the rim. That's charged negative. So innermost shell positive, rim negative. Same as the polarity of the SEG generator or converter. Now, I've been to all over promoting this technology, international energy conferences, private tech demos, and more. Nikola Tesla Club, Philadelphia. That was the year 2011. That's one of my beamships. That's Thomas Townsend Brown's electrokinetic apparatus in antigravitational mode. There it is, hovering around the ceiling. Had a commercial power supply, so I just left it hovering for the entire 1-hour lecture. They get up and move with hardly any power at all. There I am in a farm in Chester Springs, Pennsylvania, with a couple of Biefeld-Brown disks from the electrokinetic apparatus patent that I replicated just before I flew to Reno, Nevada in the year 2000 to demonstrate them. And I like that picture because it shows how this technology is right at home in a natural setting. There's no pollution, no moving parts, no noise. It's perfect for the farm, the city, everywhere. And this was last October of 2013 at the Global Breakthrough Energy Movement Conference in Boulder, Colorado. And this was at the Monmouth Regional High School in New Jersey in late March. I was demonstrating the Biefeld-Brown Effect and talking about the Searl Effect, teaching kids about this technology that has been left out of our textbooks, whether by accident or by design. We're correcting that. And unfortunately, that video is not working in this presentation, but this is my messy apartment back in 2002. That's a 6-footer, my beamship variation 3 from my company Applied Electrogravidics. And if you guys have smartphones or tablets, you can go right now to Beamship Variation 3. Beamship Variation 3, and check that out. You can see that video operating as you're sitting right there. So it's 6-foot diameter. That's about 47 grams in weight, and takes about, I'd say about 50 watts to lift off, and it's very powerful. It's very, very interesting, and it just sits there and hovers stably. And we were in China, STI, Searl Technology Incorporated. We were in Beijing last year for the 4th Global Green Economy Prosperity Forum in Beijing. The Chinese people, you know, we grew up hearing about the Red Scare and the Red Menace, the Red Chinese. When I got over to China, I found that the Chinese people were the most friendly, kind, loving people you'd ever want to meet. It's the same for people all over the world, I believe. We got to get together. We got to get together as a human species. And there's Extraordinary Technology magazine with the Demo 1. That was the last craft built, 21-foot diameter. Searl Levity Disk, or Inverse Gravity Vehicle, IGV, as we call them today. Now, let's see, I guess that's a blank slide. Yeah, well, that's me, I guess, about 5-6 years ago at the headquarters of Applied Electrogravidics, my apartment, with a model of the C-57D Starship, C-57D Starship from the movie Forbidden Planet, MGM 1956. In the 1950s, Thomas Townsend Brown had an office at the New School for Social Research, and Mason Rose, Dr. Mason Rose was the head of that in Los Angeles, California. And right after that, you started seeing all these really cool science fiction movies like The Day the Earth Stood Still and Forbidden Planet that showed that, yeah, saucer technology is more effective than internal combustion technology and can go anywhere in the universe in reasonable time and economy. Break the speed of light? Oh, yeah. Now, part 1, the world of electrogravitics, the wonderful world of electrogravitics. And part 2, electrodynamic fields. Part 3, the Searl solution, the solution that could end all our energy and pollution problems. Also clean up radioactive pollution, all that sort of thing. Very interesting. There's Dr. Nikola Tesla, the patron saint of the free energy movement in the world, and he is the electrical father of, or the father of our electrical 20th century. And without him, we would be 100 years behind in science and technology. Now, Tesla, as opposed to Einstein, believed in the ether. He said, of course I believe in ether. All my inventions depend on it. And we find out that, you know, all his work is being confirmed, and he's being recognized as the true genius and father of our modern age that he is. It's a very advanced soul, very advanced spirit. Thank you, Dr. Tesla, wherever you are. And there's Dr. Thomas Townsend Brown, Linda Brown's father, who discovered when he was 17 playing with a Crookes X-ray tube, hoping that it would exhibit some form of space propulsion, because he thought even in the 1920s that we could use some advanced technologies to go into space that would be even more effective than Robert Goddard's rocketry experiments with liquid-fueled rockets. Robert Goddard couldn't get funding after a while in the United States. People didn't believe in rocketry. The government didn't believe in rocketry. However, as we all know, the Germans took Robert Goddard's technology and ran with it. I believe they did the same thing with Thomas Townsend Brown's discoveries during World War II. A lot of incredible technologies came out of World War II that got us to the place we are now. Now, some more pictures. There's Thomas Townsend Brown, one of his saucers, electrokinetic apparatus, and farm in Chester Springs. Now, here's some real interesting electrogravitic devices. This is the Propulsion from Victor Schauberger. Victor Schauberger was a naturalist, what we call today a natural scientist, who observed interesting phenomena such as trout levitating up into waterfalls seemingly effortlessly and standing motionless in rivers. And he determined that there was reverse spirals. The coldest part of the flow was a reverse spiral, I guess what we would call an anti-gravity spiral, that could be used for propulsion. And he invented very effective logging flumes and trout turbines and home energy tornado power generators, he called them, very effective. And this repulsing anti-gravity vehicle or model that developed incredible thrust. He determined when water or air is rotated into an ever-increasing spiral, which we today call Fibonacci spiral, it develops incredible energy. And that is because as you get to the vertex of the spiral, whatever you're rotating, fluid, air, or water, increases in velocity. That increase in velocity causes a net force in one direction. In opposition to gravity, we would call that an anti-gravity force. It operates the same in any direction. And that is a device copied from Professor Searl's technology by Mark Tamian called the Electrodynamic Generator, and that is patented. Unlike the Searl Effect Generator, which operates very, very cold, cryogenic, this operates hot. But the field lines of force are the same. Notice the toroidal field lines of force. Here is positive, out here at the rim is negative. And that device is the OTC, that's a model, a flying working model of the OTC X1 from Mr. Carr, that's Otis T. Carr. Ralph Ring, who I met in Holland a couple years ago at the first Global Breakthrough Energy Conference, flew and worked on one of these man-sized, full-size craft that exhibit anti-gravity and faster-than-light FTL motion. And this is a very interesting apparatus here. This is called a Ducrochet disk, French name, Ducrochet. I don't think that's Mr. Ducrochet standing behind there, but it's a mica disk that's mobile on a point. And these are discharge spheres from a Wimshurst or similar high voltage generator. As soon as high voltage is turned on and presented to this, the mica disk assumes a rapid rotation and then flies off. I first heard about this in the book Ether Technology by Rho Sigma. Rho Sigma is Dr. Rolf Schaffrank. Rolf Schaffrank, one of the original Operation Paperclip scientists based at the Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama. And this device is an early on, from a few years ago, a couple years ago, NASA concept for a faster-than-light interstellar warp drive craft, utilizing the mathematical calculations of Miguel Alcubierre from 20 years ago, and also the technology of pioneer Thomas Townsend Brown. That is an early concept. That concept has been since updated. These rings are now thicker, and now the energy required to create your warp bubble or warp effect utilizing this technology is a lot less, way less. And we can certainly achieve that with today's off-the-shelf technology. Now, we have cosmic Berkulen currents. I don't have really a lot of time, so I won't really go into that. But you can just Google that or Bing search that and take a look at Berkulen currents. And the forces between two Berkulen currents, what really happens is forming a gravity wave. That's very important. These magnetic spirals, electrons spiral around those lines of magnetic force. These are natural magnetic flux tubes, and these are terrestrial gravity waves. Gravity is a particle and a wave. Could call it a smeared particle or a wavicle. Now, some famous faces from electrogravitic and free energy work. John Searl, Professor Searl, my friend and boss, all of humanity's friend. He is the man. There he is as a young child back in the 1930s. He's 82 years old right now, still alive, still sharp of mind. There's Professor Searl about 40 years ago at the Searl National Space Research Consortium in England. Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla, the father of our electrical age. And there's one of the IGV craft, Levity Disk or inverse gravity vehicle craft in flight. And that one's about 10, 11 foot diameter. Looks like the P-11. Some newspaper articles about the work from back in the day. There's the P-11 with a quadrant of 16 flight cells open. There's 64 flight cells in between each of the 64 struts, which make up the structure of the craft. And I'll explain a little bit more about the flight cells later and how they control the craft. The SEG or STG, which is this device at the bottom here, was not supposed to be a flying machine. It was never intended to fly. But the first 6 were lost to space because without control, they just overload on the atmosphere or the surrounding space in a corona, and off they go, despite their incredible weight. These devices are incredibly heavy. Very dense metals and materials make up these rings and rollers, which I'll explain a little bit more about that later. This is one of the control banks with 12-meter band ham radio frequency, which controlled the craft in flight. This top side of the P-11 craft. Who says a saucer can't fly? Well, they fly very well indeed, either aerodynamically or electrogravitically. The saucer design is ideal for aerospace. Now the SEG, or we call it the STG now, we call it the STG for Spintronic generator. That's basically spin battery technology. Think of each one of these little rollers as a generator, not unlike De Palma's N machine or Tawari's N machine. Each one of these plates, each one of these runners passes on charge because they're electrically conductive. The SEG or STG is the first electrostatic generator consisting solely of permanent magnets. Now, this is the toroidal electrodynamic field showing the path of electrons as they come in from the environment. The environment is its surroundings. The surroundings is the energy that's all around us. It's called the Dirac Sea of electrons. And that could be thought of as Lorentz invariant non-material ether, which Tom Bearden talks about, which all these free energy devices tap into, as nature does. Nature usually taps into the zero-point energy quantum foam by forming a vortex. Wheeler calculated the energy density potential of 1 cubic centimeter of vacuum is something like 10 to the 94th grams per cubic centimeter, which is, that's 10 with 94 zeros. That's an incredible amount of potential energy to cohere. And it's all around us in the farthest reaches of space to right here in this room, right to the space all around you. Incredible, inexhaustible. Now, we talk about man-made toroidal fields. Nature uses toroidal fields, the vortex, Fibonacci spiral. That's so important to so many free energy devices. In fact, there have been photographs taken of free energy devices such as the Bedini circuit and others, and when the photographs are developed, a tiny little tornado was seen that was not seen with the naked eye. So that's very interesting, that the vortex, and there's a very interesting representation. If you use copper wire, you can see that Fibonacci spiral. One thing that's very interesting, right in the center here, if you take a Herkimer diamond, double terminated quartz crystals, clear as possible, as large as possible, put it right in there, it becomes something really incredible. A machine for wishing dreams to come true. And it only works with good intentions. It doesn't work with bad intentions, thank God. That is ET technology. Now it's earthly technology. It's very important. You got 5, 6 spirals there, up and below. As above, so below. So you have a tornado. Underground, underneath the tornado, is an etheric or electrical tornado. The tornado doesn't just happen in severe thunderstorms, it happens in storms of high electrical activity. It's very important to understand that. As Joe Newman, Mr. Joe Newman, was also a pioneer in free energy, magnetic motors. There's his motor. You go online, find out all about his work. There's a battle for years with the patent office. And they said, well, you know, it's a perpetual motion machine. There's perpetual motion is impossible. We can't grant you a patent. Some free energy devices or zero-point energy tapping, cohering devices have made it through the patent office and were granted. Fell through the cracks. There's Joe Newman. Howard Johnson came up with a really interesting permanent magnet motor. He's an unsung pioneer. died 6 years ago. There's a working model of his magnetic motor patent. Power from permanent magnets. Well, turns out permanent magnets are gate pumps for the ether, or cosmic energy, or zero-point energy, quantum foam. And you can see some lectures, I've seen some already here, that talk about the power of magnets to cohere the ether. Actually, when you get right down to it, magnetic currents, magnetic fields, are nothing more than ether currents. Gravitational force you could think of as a converging flux of ether from space. Gravity is a push rather than a pull. And there's his amazing magnet pattern generator that was featured in Popular Mechanics back in 1979 when the patent was granted. Some curve-shaped magnets for the stator, or the rotor rather, and there's the stator. When you screw in this device here, you get the rotation, and there it is with a V-belt hooked up to a conventional dynamo. Free electricity. What happened to that? Those of you with the wherewithal and the technical knowledge, build these devices. Don't wait. Build them right now. Bless you, sir. Now, Johnson's helical wave. This is a helical magnetic wave. This makes everything possible. See how two waves interact and produce interference or shear waves that can be used to drive a motor or generator. Now we have vortex-based mathematics. Very important for understanding how nature and these zero-point energy cohering devices operate. Now we have a light wave. There's a model of it. DNA, the double helix spiral. Our own fingerprints have a whirl in the center. Think of the fingerprint of God. Everybody's fingerprint is unique, but that's the fingerprint, the model for Earth humans. There's a photonic model, ml squared over t. There's the symbol for infinity. And there's a toroid, magnetic toroid. There's your symbol for infinity right there. Coded EM cell, electromagnetic cell. Now we have the unification coil developed by Daniel and Erica Nunez of OneStopEnergies.com. The path of least resistance is the vortex. You don't have to push air or water or even electricity or etheric force through the vortex. The vortex does it for you. And there it is. Very interesting technology. Dovetails with the Starship technology of Mr. Roden. Starship coil technology. And there's a magnetometer measuring the strength of the EM field. Even at 17 plus feet from the toroidal source, you're still getting a reading, a deflection on the needle on the magnetometer. It's not following the inverse square law, where the intensity of your force drops off inversely with the square of the distance. It's not doing that. It's not normal. Something really interesting is going on in that device. This is very important. Now, electrodynamic flight characteristics. Now, there's the Searl IGV, looking rather golden over a field somewhere. Very much at home in a natural setting. You're not emitting pollution. There's no noise. There's no noise whatsoever. In fact, what it is emitting is copious negative ions, cleaning the air as it flies, eliminating radiation and pollution and all the things that we could do without, the products of our post-industrial society. Now, here we hexagon into Mark Tamian, the late Mark Tamian Starship generator. Now, that is a copy, that is a patent that's patented, and that's a copy of Professor Searl's work. And that is a very interesting device there. This device swims in a sea of electrons. The patent was granted June 11th, 2002, 6404089, Electrodynamic Field Generator. Is the author of Star Drive Engineering, and I have that book. If you can find a copy, that's great. There's a lot of really interesting secrets in there. This device There's the toroidal electrodynamic field. It swims in a sea of electrons, as opposed to our other aircraft, which swim in a sea of air, or submarines swim in a sea of fluid. This swims in a sea of electrons, which are all around us. And there it goes, swimming around. Now, Tamian's electrodynamic field, that's right from the patent. And there are some control cells at the rim. Again, the rim is highly negative. Electrons like to escape from sharp points and adhere to smooth curved surfaces. So we see that the slender disk is ideal for electrodynamic propulsion. We want to eject electrons from the rim and make them adhere to the curved surface here. So that's saucer propulsion. There's a model. It's a little diagram of the circuit, the electronic circuit. You can find that online also. In other presentations, Global BEM, you can see a little bit about that too. That's online. Everything's on YouTube. And there's the glow discharge, plasma discharge at the center of the device. See right around the rim. Plasma and vortex technologies linked together for powerful electrogravitic effects and energy generation. God bless you, Mark, wherever you are. As American Anti-Gravity, that's Tim Ventura's company that he started, I guess, either 2001 or 2002 to promote anti-gravity technologies and clean energy propulsion. Now, according to American Anti-Gravity, interview with Mark Tamian, quote, John's work, meaning Professor John Searl, was indispensable when it came to the whole configuration. I studied John's work for many years. Mark Tamian's patented functional star drive generator relies on vacuum electronics, same as vacuum tubes, to create a dual hemitoroidal electrostatic discharge through electronic means. The SEG, we call it the STG, or Spintronic generator, accomplishes its electrogravitation propulsion through permanent magnetics, Searl magnetics. That's from American Anti-Gravity. Highly recommend you go to that website, americanantigravity.com. You'll get real education, and I believe I have an interview on there too, telephone interview. Now, this is what I started working with in the late 1980s. Thomas Townsend Brown's electrokinetic apparatus, U.S. patent number 2949550. And those of you that have smartphones and tablets in here, feel free, just go to YouTube or go Bing search or Google search T.T. Brown electrokinetic apparatus, and you'll come up with the video from Reno, Nevada, when I demonstrated this in the year 2000, back in the day. And this is very effective. I've used those same discs that you saw in the photograph, 1 meter diameter saucers, and I used a custom-built tower and rotor apparatus and a custom-built high-voltage generator with a Cockcroft-Bolton voltage multiplier and a vat of, or container of mineral oil to avoid arcing. And they just went around the maypole. Later on, we sealed them up in plastic bags, and they started going backwards before some silver tape conductively sparked and shorted out our multiplier. But that works. There's one with an onboard power supply. Very effective. Thomas Townsend Brown flew these in hard vacuum in Paris, France in 1955, King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, right near where I live, in 1959 at GE Space Center, also in Hawaii, and at Agnew H. Banson Labs in Winston-Salem, North Carolina in the late 1950s. In fact, they work more efficiently in vacuum, so you can turn down the current, and they go much faster, silently. Now, this is very important. This is what's happening with these electrokinetic apparati. You have the forward electrode, which is the copper tube. That's charged positively. So you have a cloud of negative ions, a space charge of positive ions, positive space charge around the leading edge. The rest of the saucer is charged negative or chassis ground. And you have negative charges around and behind the saucer. Now, as we know from quantum electrodynamics and subquantum kinetics. I highly recommend Paul A. Laviolette's work, Subquantum Kinetics, and also his book from 2008, Secrets of Antigravity Propulsion, talks about model G. Around positive charges, you have a G well. Negative charges, you have a G hill. So this device is really a wave rider. This device will ride this wave of electrically modified space-time into infinity as long as the charge is maintained. And there's your gravity potential right here. So we are simulating gravity artificially with a high voltage electrostatic field. And we see that high energy electrostatics is identical to a gravitational field at insane voltage levels, 100 kilovolts and above. You get incredible propulsion. Now, one thing that there are about 5 factors that increase the propulsive effect. Prime factor is the voltage. By raising the voltage higher, you get more force. By using a high K factor dielectric, you can get a lot more force. By using a heavy, massive dielectric, you get more force. There's your connection with gravitation. So this is reversed. This plus should be on the other side. Well, actually, this is correct. The force is going this way. So this saucer will chase the positive electrode around till infinity. It can't reach it because it's held in fixed relationship by an insulator. It's a ballistic electrode. Actually, non-ballistic. This is non-ballistic motion. Now, in here was a video of the T.T. Brown electrokinetic apparatus, but if you go on your smartphone and tablet to T.T. Brown electrokinetic apparatus, or just simply go to the Global BEM from Boulder, Colorado from 2013, you can see that in the presentation too. Now, 20 years ago, Miguel Alcubierre came up with the calculations that mainstream science has accepted that allow faster than light travel, FTL travel. There's your basic equation. Oh, and I almost forgot. The equation for increasing electrogravitic force, if you have a pen, write this down. I didn't include it in my presentation. F equals V M1 M2 over R squared. F equals V M1 M2 over R squared. That simply means your force, whether you're using newtons or dynes or whatever unit of force you're using, is equivalent to the voltage on plate 1, capacitor plate 1, and capacitor plate 2 divided by the radius of your device. Now, you can see, this looks familiar. Doesn't this resemble that metric of the gravity wave? Here's your gravity field. This is a sheet of flat space-time, or flatland space-time slot. So this is space-time, 3D space-time rendered in 2D. There's your gravity hill, negative field behind the ship. Here's where your ship is. And here's the positive pole, positive field ahead of the ship. A B-2 Spirit bomber definitely uses this technology. That's from, let's see. B-2 Spirit bomber is from 1988. That's right. Thank you, sir. 1988. And the company, I believe, it wasn't Lockheed Martin. It was Northrop Grumman. And Northrop did some experiments in the 1960s where they electrified airfoils and found that not only is skin heating is eliminated, but sonic boom is also eliminated. These devices are silent. So there's your warp drive metric, and we can obviously use these inertialist T. Townsend Brown devices and Tamian and Searl devices to exceed the speed of light. The Alcubierre warp drive metric permits the existence of faster than light travel within the framework of general relativity if you subscribe to that religion. Now, here's another picture. Look at that equation. I would write that down too. Thank goodness this was included. V equals minus A times TRK. And there's your Alcubierre warp drive metric. This is very important. So it's really mind-altering and mind-opening to realize that we have had FTL, faster than light, warp drive, Star Trek type technology for decades. What the heck? Breakaway civilization. I highly recommend you Google that. From my younger colleague, Mr. Richard Dolan, talks about the breakaway civilization and how this technology has been utilized by upper echelons of the military for decades. Anyway, with this technology, Searl Effect technology, we can cohere massive power for interstellar flight. Space is foreshortened in front of the disk and expanded behind the disk. That's the great thing about space-time. It's an elastic medium. We can compress it, we can expand it with electrostatic potential or electromagnetic potential, as in toroids. Toroids also can achieve anti-gravity propulsion and FTL, faster than light propulsion, as well. Now, that's the proud logo of our company that Professor Searl has authorized, Searl Technology, the swallow. Swallow, seek with all learning, love overrules war. And we all have to get together as a species and stop this tribal warfare, because we're not alone in the universe. Yes, interstellar travel. Our goal is interstellar travel for everyone, not just the elite military. And how do we achieve this effect? With the technology of Professor John Searl. What is the Searl effect? The Searl effect is based on a unique process of magnetization where specific waveforms are imprinted onto the materials. The materials are magnetized in a way that is not practiced in today's industry, nor is John Searl's method taught in conventional electronic engineering schools. When those materials are in motion, the waveforms begin to interact and produce electricity. In addition to producing electricity, the SEG or STG Spintronic generator gets very cold. It runs cold and produces and generates a negative charge within its vicinity, negative ions. So studies show, and we all know, that negative charges kill bacteria and viruses, take dust right out of the air. You have a healthy environment, a healthier home environment with a domestic SEG, and we could take these over to Fukushima and eliminate their radioactive problems in hours. How about that? This is a cool graphic that one of our team did, magnetizer. And that's me 4 years ago at the Pyramid North, Marriott Pyramid North in Albuquerque, with our friend and mentor, Professor John Roy Robert Searl, 4 years ago. I was sitting talking to him for about 3 hours. Man's just amazing. He's the kindest, nicest, smartest man that I know on the planet today. And he's still alive. He's a living legend in free energy and anti-gravity. You can be sure that your device is interacting with the ether, your free energy device, if you see gravitational anomalies and artificial gravitation. Now, this technology came about from the law of the squares. This technology came about from Professor Searl, who had 2 oddly recurring lucid, vivid dreams when he was age 4 to age 10. That 2 dreams happened twice a year, 2 squared, over 6 years. Well, 2 squared is 4. So we have a basic matrix of 4 verticals, 4 horizontals, and 4 diagonals. Now, if you have the numbers up to 16 sequential, your outputs, your sums, are all random. However, if you randomize those numbers, your outputs become uniform on your horizontals, verticals, and diagonals. That's a mathematical representation of what the SEG is doing, converting the random energy of vacuum, which we call ether, which Tesla believed in, and we're confirming today with quantum theory. You get conversion of this energy into a coherent form, coherent output. Oh, and you can also do the same thing, just as light focuses or coheres these random colors into a coherent beam of white light. Also do the same thing with magnetic frequencies. Light is electromagnetic energy. Now, the SEG or STG Spintronic generator is frictionless because we use copper or aluminum paramagnetic materials on the outer surfaces of our stators, which are our rings, and our rollers, which are our runners. There's no friction whatsoever. Now, there's your magnetic lines of force. The magnets are not magnetized in your traditional bow tie pattern. When you put one of the Searl plates or runners on magnetic film, you'll get something that looks like wagon wheel spokes. Those are helical magnetic gear teeth. So there's no friction, no noise, just cool, quiet energy, and more energy than you will believe. Anything that you want to power electrically, you can power with the Spintronic generator or Searl Effect Generator or Spintronic generator. Will revolutionize our society, and it's about to. We're in the prototyping phase. Very exciting. But of course, we need funds to continue, and I know that is happening as we speak. So the law of the squares is a mathematical representation of the complex switching and exchange patterns that take place between matter and energy. Of course, matter and energy are the same thing when you get right down to it. Now, there's your toroid, the vortexes above and below. As above, so below. Right in here is generated electrodynamic force. For propulsion or free energy, there's your model of a photon. And the law of the squares tells you what proportion of elements, what amount of elements to use depending on what volume of space you want to fill with Searl Effect Generator. Highly recommend you study the law of the squares. Comes from ancient Chinese science also as well, thousands of years ago. There's a sine wave when you bring a runner or roller to one of these stationary plates. You got to have two fields at right angles or it won't work. You have two magnetic sine waves printed with sinusoidal currents, 90 degrees out of phase on the plate and the runner, going in opposite directions. So you get a helical moving wave that carries along the rollers in the troughs of the wave. They can't help but start rolling and orbiting. These magnetic modules and the rings, made of the same materials, of course, are so electrically active that bits of plastic, wood, and paper and dust will stick to their surfaces. They're producing electricity even without any relative movement. The Barrett report shows that if you put a probe on the center and a probe on the rim, you can draw current anywhere from 3 to 15 volts without any movement at all. Rotation enhances that effect markedly. And there's the structure of the SEG, Searl Effect Generator, in its most basic form. Have to have a rare earth as an electron reservoir. Nobody thinks about the efficacy and utility of the electron. We think about atomic power and moving fast neutrons and splitting up atoms. Instead, we're not splitting up atoms at all. We're using the atoms and electrons in these materials that are electrically conductive. These magnets, like Alnico magnets, have to be electrically conductive to pass the charge. So this is the electron reservoir, the neodymium. We use neodymium, could use any rare earth. Now, rare earths have a couple extra electrons. They're outer 4f and 5f band valence shells in the conduction bands. So they have extra electrons. They combine with electrons from the environment, the Dirac sea of electrons, to form a boson pair or a Cooper pair that tunnel through the materials. Here's your insulator. Got to have that. And then here's your magnetized layer of iron and the outer paramagnetics layer of copper. So your four-element SEG, that's your nominal spintronic generator, or SEG. The runners, same materials. So in here, this layer is positively charged. This is negative charge. So electron deficit at the rim, electron surplus at the outermost surface. Kind of like an atom, the electrical configuration of an atom, or a solar system, or a planet. Now, there's a mock-up we made just to show the basics of the design, to show that you can get magnets to spin around and not fly off no matter how fast they go. Scientists had said in the past, well, they'll go faster and faster, and eventually, centrifugal force will take over and they'll fly off. No such luck. They stay tight. Now here, there's no such imprinting, and these are just made out of just simple magnets with simple imprinting, just to show the concept. These do make noise and they do have contact. So this is just a simple mock-up with induction coils to get the voltage that you would normally get through the four-element SEG. This is just two elements, copper on the outside and iron on the inside that's magnetized, and the runners, same thing. This is not your nominal SEG, but it's very effective for getting the point across. There's your sine wave on the scope. Now, what you get is an expanding flux of electrons, and at higher energy levels, a vacuum envelope which surrounds the device. The air is just pushed away. It's your SEG. There's your home SEG, your domestic SEG, for powering your home off the grid forever. No noise. 15 kilowatts, 11 to 15 kilowatts limited. And it's very important that it be limited because the more load you put on this thing, as in opposition to all other generators, the more load you put on an SEG, the faster it runs and the colder it gets. And it's also getting lighter all the time despite its great weight. Very interesting what's going on here. So in this case, these induction coils are now pickup coils, and you're generating electricity in the conventional manner by cutting lines of magnetic force with a conductor. That's all. You can either move the conductor or you can move the field. The SEG just moves the field and the conductors remain stationary. How would you like to have one of these in your home? Just, yeah, we are in the prototyping stage. We need money to continue. We'll talk about that later. Now, there's your nominal SEG. Plate number 1, plate number 2, plate number 3. All we need to demonstrate and generate the effect is plate number 1 and 1 runner. Nominal, need 12 runners on your inner plate. So total 69 to 72 runners. And each one of these plates and each one of these runners is a separate generator in itself. And no matter what the power level, the current always stays at 1.5 milliamperes, even if you're at flight voltage of 1 teravolt. There's some ferrite SEGs for generating torque. Below your flight voltage or below your superconducting stage, you can generate useful torque. Once you start superconducting, the Earth pushes the device away with irresistible force, and you have no more torque, no more inertia either. There's a letter from Mr. George Uhlig, who is a major in the U.S. Army, Propulsion Directorate, who was interested and requested a copy of the report by Professor Searl on a disc-shaped apparatus. Anyway, I'm going to go through these as fast as I can. There's the IGV, the Searl Effect Generator. The whole idea of the flying craft, the SEG was not supposed to fly. It was not a flying machine. It was not intended to fly. It was just supposed to be a unique kind of electrical generator. But the first 6 were lost to space. They refused to stay on the ground. So Professor Searl said, well, this is kind of silly. If it wants to fly, let's let it fly. Let's build a body around it so we can control it. And lots of people, when they saw what it could do, a consortium of 13 old-age gentlemen got together to fund this flight work. The first 6 SEGs were funded by the late George Haynes. Now, the IGV, inverse gravity vehicle, used to be called the Levity Disk, is a slender disk concept. The slender disk concept, 41 to 42 of these were built and flown by the Searl National Space Research Consortium, or SNSRC. Now, there's a single-seater fighter craft. There's a rim discharge pin. It's a landing strut. 64 struts, 64 flight cells, and there's your center column. That's where all your avionics and periscope apparatus for TV camera monitors would go. There's your basic structure, the Searl Effect Generator, a Spintronic generator enlarged for clarity, 64 struts. There's your electromagnetic, electrodynamic lines of force, about 3 or 4 different kinds of force fields. A conventional high-energy electrostatic field, a rotating electrostatic field, a rotating magnetic field we call a dynamagnetic field that repels objects approaching. You don't have to worry about cosmic rays. Cosmic rays just sucked in from above and below and utilized by the drive, as well as anything else. You're protected. You're in the eye of the hurricane in this device. And there's your pressure vessel. You have to have a life support system because anything from 1 million volts, half a million to 1 million volts, no air can get in. It's just pushed away. There's a graphic done by Chuck Middaugh, I believe. There's some landing struts, and those will be motorized for when you land at your airport or want to take off. Vertical takeoff is a VTOL concept, vertical takeoff and landing concept. Starship Ezekiel. We call these Searl starships. Professor Searl calls them starships because they are. They are FTL. They can go right up to the speed of light, but since they have no inertia, the speed of light shouldn't be a barrier. The faster you go, you don't get heavier. So speed of light is not a barrier to this form of propulsion. And there it is at an airport. And there's a flight seat, comfortable flight seat. You don't need a seatbelt. You just have 1/2 G onboard gravitation. That's the only thing you feel. Instant starts, stops, reversals, right angle turns at thousands of miles per hour, no problem. You're a force field propelled vehicle. And there's some photographs from 42 years ago, 1972, of the last craft built, the Demo 1 craft, being completed in Berkshire, in England, on the land of the late Alfred Fleetwood. Demo 1 inserting a landing strut unit, retractable landing struts. Now there's the crew building the Demo 1. Back in the day, it's 7 meters in diameter. This is where the Spintronic generator would go, this ring right near the rim. There's flight cells in between each of these 64 struts, and your pressure vessel. Have to have life support system to carry people, because there's no air can come near that at those voltages. And there's the completed, almost completed Demo 1 vehicle, 21-footer, 7-meter, with Sue Justice and miniskirt standing on top of it. And some other people working on it, Gordon Goodfellow, some other people, and Professor Searl is a young man. Demo 1. That was the only craft that they allowed, the press was allowed to film. And there's reams of footage, reams of flight footage and other footage of the team working with BBC, a lot of newspaper coverage, magazine coverage. There's the IGV from 1968, took its first flight in the end of June 1968, June 30th, 1968. That was the P-11. It's about 11-foot diameter, weighed about 4.5 tons. 4.5 tons, but it's up, bounces up like a rubber ball, like it weighs nothing. Now, this is some surviving footage taken with a motor drive camera, 6 frames in rapid succession of the P-11 in flight. This is Professor Searl standing in front of it. It's a 4.5-ton vehicle. Shows the action of the flight cells. When flight cells are open, solenoids fire a hard rubber pin at the rollers just passing, and just like it touching a gyroscope, the SEG is forced downward. Also, the polarity coming out of that side is also changed from negative to positive. And there's your stable hover. So you see on this side, it's tilted down, and then on the other side, flight cells are opened up on the other side, and it corrects the attitude, so you get a stable hover. So very effective. 42 of these models were built and flown over the years, some without radio control, most with 12-meter band ham radio controlled. The BBC took reams of footage over the years, and weekly programs with Professor Searl and the SNSRC, Searl National Space Research Consortium. Years ago, they wanted insane amounts of money for the footage. Now they don't even admit it exists. It insults a lot of people that are my age and older that remember it. And there's a photo taken from another IGV flight in flight of a P-11 P-series craft from about a half a mile up in Warminster. Yeah, this is old technology. This is not new. In fact, you can go back to ancient India and Atlantis and see that they had similar technologies. Solid-state technologies. Golden Gate Bridge, some IGVs flying. There's an IGV with kneeling landing legs. You have to have it above the Earth, a certain surface, or when you take off, it'll suck up some sod or earth, or maybe even a chunk of concrete, stick to the bottom of the craft. Because right here is your attraction zone, which is positive. Out here is your repulsion zone, which is negative. Same polarity as the Spintronic generator. No noise, no pollution, no heat, no vibration, no consumption of Earth's oxygen, no need to carry fuel, no runways, no launch pads. We are the tomorrow people, the decision makers. Tomorrow's technology today, and this is today's technology. This is 1968 and 69. Woodstock generation. The man who saved tomorrow. Would you like to breathe this air, drink this water? Or would you like this? There's force fields around the craft. They become visible. Beautiful pink halo is visible from the rim at higher power levels. You can even adjust the power levels to create interesting effects like a beautiful rain of fire. There's a pressure suit, a proposed pressure suit for crews. And there's supposed to be some nice animation in there, but if you go to the Global BEM, go on YouTube, the Global BEM, Russell Anderson Global BEM presentation, you can see the animation of the disk coming in for a landing, taking off, and taking a tour inside the disk. Some beautiful animation showing the flight stations, the workstations. And there we are in orbit around Mars. Get to Mars in, depending on what power level you use, either a few days or a few hours. FTL travel, go to Alpha Centauri. This is the technology of Professor John Searl, the gift to mankind from the pioneer of electrovitics, Dr. Nikola Tesla, who did some electrovitics work in Colorado Springs in 1899. Famous experiments. The inverse gravity vehicle. It's here now. Don't think of it as coming. The secret of manifestation is to imagine it here right now. And I've seen that principle work in my own life. Fascinating. Support a better tomorrow for all now. We can have a better today. Not tomorrow. This is today. This technology is here right now. The only thing standing in the way is cash. We have the technology. We own the rights to the technology. And we're going to do this. We are doing it. In loving memory of Nikola Tesla, Mark Tamian, James Howard, Mary Macaluso of BCC, and all other dearly departed advocates of human sustainability. This is a sustainable technology. Special thanks to John Roy Robert Searl, living legend in free energy and anti-gravity. Team Searl, SMI, STI, SAC, that's not Strategic Air Command, that's Searl Aerospace Corporation, BKF Films, Bradley Lockerman Films out of Los Angeles, California. Bradley Lockerman is here today if you want to talk to him. Jason Verbelli, Chuck Middaugh, Tigana 2, Kevin Balmer, Daniel and Erica Nunez, Jason Hughes, the Tesla Science Foundation in Philadelphia, AmericanAntiGravity.com, and you, all of you, the builders and supporters of this movement. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I hope we've sufficiently knocked your socks off, and now we're ready for the Q&A.
Yep. Any questions? Why don't you come on up? Questions? Come on up here. Form a line. Does this count?
What? What is that? I don't want a dirty sock.
Ignore the man behind the curtain.
Well, I guess I did my job.
Please say your name. Where you're from?
I'm Tommy Diestel. I'm from Chico, California, and I was just wondering, one issue that I haven't heard addressed yet is the issue of consumption, and I was wondering, do you have any ideas about addressing the scarcity of the rare metals used in the craft?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. However, the metals that are used in the craft are not scarce. There are mountains of them. They're abundant. In fact, we have one that just opened up in California, in Calabasas, I believe, or the metals aren't the problem. Professor Searl is the inventor of the rare earth magnet. He used neodymium. Before he used neodymium in his magnets, neodymium was just used in the glass blowing industry to polish and tint glass. And when magnet companies found out that you can make the most powerful magnets on Earth with them, they colluded. They, got together and said, "Hey, we'll raise the price of these to insane amounts." But of course, when you buy anything in bulk, the price comes down markedly. So, yeah, that's not a problem.
Nice.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Joshua McAllister. I'm also from Chico, California. I'm wondering about the guidance system for the craft. Is there some sort of mapping system used, like a space-time grid or gravimetrics, possibly?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Because the craft have no inertia, you can't use your standard gyros and inertial guidance systems. Instead, we just take star readings. We'll have a bubble, astrogation bubble, the very center above and below the pressure vessel center, to take star readings and, navigate the way spacecraft navigate today, or the ancient mariners navigated by the stars. Thank you, sir.
I'm Dan Callan from Albuquerque. What is the major technical issue? Do you have a major technical issue?
We have no major technical issues. All technical issues have been resolved. The only issue is money. And in fact, we have these brochures here that talk about the project in very basic form, what we're doing, and we are prototyping. We have made magnets on the east coast of the United States. We're not sitting on our hands. And I'll be giving more of these away. I have to make more copies. If you are a serious qualified investor, you're well-to-do, I'll be giving these out. These are the confidential memorandum report, which talks about the technology in detail. And also there's a DVD in the back that'll give you a prospectus on what we're doing. But I only have a few of these. Specifically, they're for qualified people who are interested in supporting the work. The time to get in is before the light bulb is marketed, not while it's in the R&D stage, or actually while it's in the R&D stage and before it's marketed. So we're confident that anyone that even has a small piece of the action is going to be doing very, very well indeed. If they're not already doing well, they're going to be doing even better. Thank you, sir.
We've got 3 minutes left. 2 more questions? 3 minutes.
Okay. Robert Belknap, Houston, Texas, and thank you for your presentation. I'm interested in the Searl electric generator, the 10 kilowatt model. I think you mentioned that.
Yeah, it'll be 11 to 15 kilowatts because that's the peak usage of your average home, your average McMansion if you turn everything on. If you overload it, the temperature goes cryogenic, about 4 Kelvin, that's about 256 degrees below zero, and your SEG will give you terrible trouble because it will punch through your roof, as one of the first ones did to Professor Searl's first landlady's house when he was 14 years old.
Very interesting.
How much do you expect that to be?
You'll have your turn. You'll have your turn in a minute. Okay. So,
I'll answer that question in a minute, sir.
We're almost out of time.
So my question is, you said it was like 1.5 milliamp. Was that constant current?
Yeah, no matter what the output is.
The voltage would vary and be very high.
Yes, whatever the voltage, the current remains at a 1.5 milliamps.
It's just an effect of the design.
Yes.
The way you harness that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and DC, I would imagine.
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you.
But you can rectify it into AC, obviously. Or how about running everything in your home on 12-volt DC, which some people do. But you can run it on any current you want, depending on your windings of your pickup coils. 60 hertz for United States, 110, 120 volts, 50 hertz, 250 volts for Europe. Next question.
Otis D. Carr had a crash just like this, and he flew it all over.
Yes,
the place.
I mentioned that in the talk, as you
your
saw.
Technology to his.
Yes, it's similar.
That's what I thought.
The OTC X1 and the
some
Carr
of his stuff
Neutron has been
live.
called the poor man. It's been called the poor man's Searl disk.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you guys are much more advanced. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Military trying to hold you guys down?
Oh no, quite the opposite. They're cheering us on.
But look what happened 30 or 40 years ago. It never went.
Times have changed. If you turn on the TV, look at any of these cable channels, Science Channel, H2, Travel Channel, the paradigm has changed. They're attesting to the reality of these craft and even that we have the same technology. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. Would this be functional for city-to-city transportation? And could you horizontally travel that way, or would you have to go up into the atmosphere and then come back down? And then also, what happens to like birds and animals that get in the field?
Very good questions. Well, first question, you could travel horizontally, just like any normal aircraft. You could travel suborbitally. You could get anywhere on the Earth in 30 minutes or less. And aircraft companies that want to license this technology, purchase this technology, they will be doing quite well because the craft will cost about the same as conventional aircraft, but your maintenance costs will be pretty much zero. You won't have to buy fuel. So the cost of transportation will come down to the common man, and the cost of aerospace work will come down by vast sums, vast. Birds and animals that come near have their nervous systems interfered with. They just fall to the ground, as previous flight experiments showed. No, they're just stunned. Phasers on stun. Great questions.
Thank you, Russell Anderson.